Well, welcome everybody to Anxiety 101. We're going to start in a few minutes here. My name is Dario Castilla. I am your host of Stop Anxiety 101, and look forward to chatting with you a little bit about anxiety and ways you can eliminate it. Be back in a few minutes. Welcome everybody to Anxiety 101. I'm Dario Castiglia, I'm your host, and we're going to talk a little bit about today is how anxiety can rule your life, and how we're going to find ways to stop that. So I'm looking forward to do that. So I'm going to switch over the camera now to my notes, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can help you. Okay, welcome back. So, how to reduce anxiety in 3 easy steps using the STA method. We're going to talk a little bit about today is stop, think, and act. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Dario Castilla. Judging from my last name, you can tell it's a nice Italian name. I grew up in Vancouver, Canada. My parents are from Italy. And my childhood consisted of a pretty good childhood, although I had some events happen to me, when I was very young that affected my anxiety growing up later on. Most of that was from bullying at school and different things that happened, some abuse that happened early in my life that kind of skyrocketed my anxiety through the roof in my early 20s. And I'll get into that in a little bit later here. So my story in a nutshell here is, why am I doing this? My personal battle with anxiety and how I got better. Anxiety, as you know, is detrimental. So many people have suffered with anxiety, and so many have in North America. We've got over 40 million people that suffer. Being an anxiety self over 25 years, I couldn't leave my home in my early 20s for over 3 years. Believe it or not, that's a long time. Just think of it, if you were in jail for 3 years, how do you cope with that? And it's the same thing as being in jail, because I figured, you know, in my mind, I couldn't get past my bedroom, even to get the mail. We had one of these, lived in a rural farm area, and we had to go outside to get the mail with the little mailbox that the little flag went up and whatnot. And I couldn't even do that. So I was stuck at home. I was depressed, and I was sick and tired, living full of fear. And, you know, as a man, I was quite embarrassed to have this condition. And it had, you know, because of that, I had gained about 50, 60 pounds, didn't exercise, didn't care what I ate, was miserable, was unhealthy. I was pale, and I was scared all the time. To the point where even when my parents would say they were leaving to go shopping, the anticipatory anxiety took over, and I could not even deal with that. So as a 21 or 22-year-old, I found myself, you know, even going shopping with things that I want to be alone. And that's what my life was like for about 3 years. It was terrible. And my thoughts were keeping me a prisoner in my own mind. So let's talk a little bit about the anxiety cycle, okay? For those of you that are listening right now might not understand how anxiety works. First of all, there's always going to be a trigger, which starts with your thoughts. And then the fear, of course, that grips you. And that's caused a lot of it by stress, worry, and the anxiety. So it becomes quite a cycle. And I used to be able to gauge my anxiety when I learned how. And, you know, a 10 would have been catastrophic for me. And I've always hit a 7 or 8 or a 9 when I was in my full swing anxiety panic mode. And anxiety attack, you know, it seems like the end of the world's coming, but really, as anxiety attack lasts between 3 and 5 minutes, but it really, really feels like it's going on forever and you're going to die. It really does. It's just the most scariest thing I've ever had to deal with in my whole life. Best way I can explain it to you was if I was stuck on the railroad tracks, my car had just stalled. Give you an example. The doors were locked. And the train's coming at full speed. That was my life 24/7. That's how I felt. That's how my heart and my mind responded to it. And it was like almost like a light switch being turned on all the time. I was always on alert. I was always worried, and I was always trying to find an escape. And that was pretty well 24/7 for me. So, you know, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States. And a lot of people might not know that. But anxiety disorders range from different groups, age groups to years. I have a graph that I've designed for you folks, and the percentage of people. So between the ages 35 and 44 and 45 to 54 seems where the most anxiety sufferers suffer, you know, and I'm not sure why that is. A lot of young teens, 16, 17, 18. For myself, I started getting anxiety attacks when I was 4 or 5 years old, but really didn't hit full swing and full momentum until I was about 17, 18, 19. That's when it really started hitting me. So, and later on in years, I think people, you know, become more aware of it. They know how to control it. Maybe there's better medication, and it seems to dissipate as you get older. Or maybe you just don't care anymore. I don't know. But it seems to dissipate as you get older. So a lot of people out there are probably listening, and I can see quite a few people here in our screen or are on our webinar. I thank you very much. There's a lot of people out there, I'm sure, between the ages 35 and 55 that are going through just hell right now. And I think I can help you, you know, get over it. Anxiety disorders, I might want to say, is very, very treatable. Yet 1/3 of people suffering from anxiety actually receive treatment. So most don't, because they don't know what it is. Men are most terrible for that. I was more proactive as a man looking for help. You know, back then I was so afraid to even get into a relationship with a lady, because I thought, well, what the heck am I going to do? What am I going to offer her? I mean, I have to, you know, I can't even leave the house. What kind of relationship would this be? So my goal for you today is simple. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to identify and label irrational thoughts and behaviors which are sabotaging you. You'll have a clear plan of action. And as you apply the STA method, which again is a method that we developed here to help you with your daily life, you will see the rate of progress increase. You'll start getting more you know, confidence. And with that, you're going to see more success. And that's my goal for you today, is to help you do that. And start enjoying life, because life is meant to be enjoyed. We only have one go around at this. And we certainly don't want to see you stuck at home full of anxiety, not doing the beautiful things that life can offer. So the 3 C's of life, this is what makes a difference for me, was I've been where you are, and I have felt what you feel. After many years of suffering, doctors and et cetera, psychologists, I put together a series of steps that have helped me conquer my anxiety. And again, I thank you for the privilege to share them with you. I'm here to help you guide through the tunnel into the light of an anxiety-free life. So I want you to know that you're not alone. And yes, you can do this. I'm a firm believer that you can. I've done it. I'm no different from you. And I know that you can be helped with this program. The 3 C's of life, again, is your choice, chance, and change. You must make a choice. That's the first step. If you're deciding to do something about your anxiety, and today's the day you're going to say, yeah, I'm going to do something about it, this is the choice. Chance. Well, what are the chances that you and I are here today on a webinar? Well, the chances are pretty great because there's a reason for everything in life. And I believe this meeting that we have together here on this webinar is a divine intervention. I really believe that. And your life will never, ever, ever be the same once you learn a couple techniques here that I'm going to share with you that's changed my life completely. You know, today I'm anxiety-free. I can't say completely anxiety-free because sometimes I do get them, but I know what it is and I know how to control it. I can travel today. I can do things that I would never dreamed of doing. I have a successful real estate career that I do really, really well at. And if you think as a realtor, you can't be a successful realtor if you can't leave your house. That's not going to work. So as you can probably imagine, I had to go through a lot of hardships, a lot of battles, a lot of mental fortitude, we call it, to get where I am today. And I'm here to help you that it will be done and it can be done. And I'm going to show you how. So after suffering for 25 years and countless wasted times, I discovered 3 things. The 3 things that really, really, really stood out for me in the last 25 years is negative thoughts kept me prisoner, not only in my mind, but in my house. As I mentioned earlier in the webinar here, you know, it's like having a 3-year sentence in a penitentiary. That's exactly what your mind feels, because I really thought I was stuck and I could not get out. And as soon as I stepped out of my comfort zone or my safe place, the negative thoughts started flooding my mind. And those negative thoughts perpetuated me to start having anxiety, from heart palpitations to sweaty palms to you know, my blood pressure going up, to my knees being weak, to feeling like fainting, to so many different things that have happened to me when you get anxiety. And it all started with one thing, that was the thought of me doing something out of my comfort zone. So the negative thoughts kept me negative and anxious all the time, and I was in a perpetual cycle of irrational thoughts. That's my life was an irrational thought. As a pendulum swings, so were my irrational thoughts. They never really ever stopped. The only time I found some peace was when I slept. But even then, I had a lot of nightmares, and I would wake up, go to bed, being anxious, and my life was a complete mess. Number 3. If I was able to be anxious-free, it would be up to me and the battle in my mind. That's one thing that I learned at a very, very, very young age, in my early 20s, that a few people that I went to see that were very special people in my life, one was a minister, said that if it was up to being anxious-free is going to be up to me. Sure, God was going to play a big part of that, but really it was the battle of my mind. I had to take control of the thoughts that were coming into my mind, and I had to calm myself down. And I did learn these techniques from years of practice. So as I mentioned earlier, I discovered the hard way. I mean, I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on professionals, years and years of struggling and being in pain. I can tell you, I can't count how many times my wife at that time, you know, took me to the emergency ward at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I sat there, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, just covered in sweat, thinking when I have a heart attack, I'm dying, I'm going crazy, they're going to lock me up. It just would not end. And a lot of doctors at that time in the early 90s didn't really understand what the panic disorder was. They knew of it, but one doctor, which completely offended me once, sat me down in a little room, I'll never forget it. And he sat down with me and he said, "Son, what are you on? Like, what kind of, like, are you on cocaine?" And that deeply troubled me, because I thought, wow, I mean, here I am having a serious episode, never taken a drug in my life. And the last thing I was going to do is take, you know, cocaine. But wow. And I was just completely in shock. And then and there, I said to myself, man, this is not even known what people have. I mean, in the early 90s, there was really not really a name for it. I mean, there was anxiety, panic, but if you say somebody had agoraphobia, they were like, well, what is this? So are you scared of spider? Like, they didn't understand what that was, right? So my goal every day was to try to either die or sleep. And that was my life. I really wanted to die or sleep all day. I didn't really care about anything else. At that time, I didn't have a wife, or I didn't have kids. I was just a young man of 22, 23 years old. And I lived at home and really didn't really work because I couldn't. And that was my day. So that took me into a really dark place. I was in a deep, dark depression because nobody understood me. And the more I spoke about it, the more they thought I was a nutcase. A lot of family and friends didn't understand what I had. A lot of friends of mine were going to Hawaii or Mexico or on a trip. And I was like, no way I can even leave this little bedroom, let alone a trip. So you get to learn from my struggles. I will share with you what I know, and I will not hold back. I want you to have success that I've had. And I'll tell you exactly what we're going to do step by step, and the trouble that a lot of people face with their anxiety disorder. So most people want the easy fix, okay? There is no easy fix. And if I said to you, watch the webinar and learn a few techniques and you'll never have anxiety ever again, I wouldn't be telling the truth. The truth is we're always going to have a little bit of anxiety. And what we have is an anxiety disorder. And that's how we're going to learn to overcome and cope with the disorder. Because, hey, do I still get freaked out sometimes? Absolutely. I mean, I'm human. And my heart sure jumps out of my chest like everybody else. But I'm not going to have that go into a full swing number 10 panic attack and freak myself out. I will not do that anymore because I know what it is. I know how to talk myself out of it, and I know how to control my body now. So like I mentioned before, you'll always have a little bit of anxiety because, again, we are human. I will teach you how to harness that negative, anxious energy and change it into a positive, proactive lifestyle. I have two little boys now that, well, they're not so little now. They're 16 and 12, but I do things with them that I would never thought I'd be able to do. And, sometimes we do fun things at the park and whatnot. And that makes it all worthwhile is if you have kids, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody wants to do things with their kids and have fun. And that's a goal that I had in mind that I wanted to do for them. So again, my goal is very simple. I'm not a doctor or a medical professional, but that's even better because I've suffered as you're suffering, and I've gone through what you're going through, and I know exactly how you're thinking. So I've suffered this with many years, and I can shed some light and help you because I have lived it. A lot of doctors and stuff mean well. I've gone to many of them, and psychologists, and the first thing they'll try to prescribe me is Ativan or clozapam, I think it's called. There's so many different medications in the market today right now to help you calm. And some of that stuff is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people are afraid to take it, but a lot of it will give you, some encouragement and some confidence to go forward to the next step. And sometimes that's all they are. They're really almost like a Band-Aid to help you cope. But don't rely on medications at all, because it's not something that you want to be hooked on at all. Okay, so as anxiety kept me a prisoner of mind in my own home, I was stuck and did not know who could help me. So as I mentioned earlier, my parents, my family, my friends, my brothers ignored me. My friends thought I was a bit weird. That Dario guy spends a lot of time at home. What's his deal? I didn't think anybody or anything can help me. I made so many calls in the day. I was in my home, my bedroom. I had a computer back then, or a little phone thing, and I try to phone doctors, I try to phone psychologists, I try to phone people that can help me. And believe it or not, they're all $150, $180, $200 an hour. And here's a guy that was, making no money. My parents, they were working hard. One of them was working 2 jobs, and they couldn't find their way out of this to help me. So I was really, really stuck. I didn't think anybody or anything can help me. And that was the lowest point of my life. So I discovered the STA method, and I purposely designed this as a stop sign, okay? Because it is exactly that. I see a stop sign in my mind when I have a panic episode starting. I see a stop sign, and it'll say stop, think, act, just like I've seen here, that I've put together here. So I want you to stop. What we're going to talk about is stopping the thought. We're going to think about the thought, and then we're going to act against it. See, nothing stays in a vacuum at all. Vacuum is dead space. So when you replace a negative thought, we have to reinforce that negative thought with something positive, or it doesn't matter. It just ends up to be nothing. So we're going to show you a few things how how we've designed a really nice system here to help you get through this. So step 1, 2, and 3, as you can see on the screen, is stop, think, and act. In the next few slides, I will break this all down and dissect exactly what I did to help myself to get better and start living a life that's worth living. So the first thing we want to talk about is stop. Stop what you're doing, breathe, and take a breath. That's the very first thing when an anxiety attack hits you. And it all comes down to the thought. And many, many, many years ago, I broke that down and dissected it, that I was actually carrying a little voice recorder with me. And I was actually playing it. Every time that thought came in my mind that was negative, I'd play it. And most often than not, that negative thought was the same ones. I'm not good enough. You're going crazy. You're alone. You're a loser. No one loves you. You know, what if you lose your mind here in the middle of this soccer field or whatever you're at? And, you know, and I started listening to those recordings back, and I'm telling you that the negative thoughts that were coming across my mind daily was astounding. And I'm talking hundreds of them. And no wonder I was in a perpetual mode of anxiety all the time. My thoughts were everything, and they were wrong, and they weren't positive. I've done nothing in my life at that point to really engage myself in good positive thoughts or some really good positive things. I just lived in perpetual fear, and that kept me in a bottomless pit. And you can just picture trying to climb out of a bottomless pit. It's impossible. You're sliding down all the time. You're not getting a grip on anything, and that was me. The very first thing you want to do is you want to stop and take control of your mind. Stop, think of the thought that just happened, because this will perpetuate your anxiety further if you don't control that part of it right there. We're going to think about which type of negative thought you're thinking about. I'm going to go through a series of them here in a little bit, telling you what they are. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a taste of what I had to go through. So some of the thoughts that came into my mind was, for example, I would be sitting in the back of my parents' car going somewhere, and all of a sudden, what if I lose my mind right now and stick my head out the window and start yelling, for example? That's an irrational thought, right? So I had to take control of that situation, and I'd say, no, stop, right? I had to think about what I was doing and think, no, Dario, you're a rational, safe person. You're with your mom and dad. Everything's fine, and you're not going to do that. You haven't done that up to this point. There's no reason why you're going to do that. And so what if you did? So what if you stick your head out the window? What's the worst thing that can happen? So I talked myself right out of that situation. And before you know it, it's a couple other techniques that I implemented. I was starting to feel calm. And it's just amazing how that works. So we're going to act. You're going to use your positive self-talk to shift your thinking into positive action. Okay. And one of the things that I want to talk to you about right now is, when the anxiety did come upon me, a lot of times I kept myself very, very, very busy when an anxiety attack was about to happen. For example, when I thought about the thought I was having, I controlled that thought, I stopped and I acted. The first thing I would do is keep myself busy, whether it be watching a soccer game, listening to loud music, anything to keep myself. I'd go read read a book, go talk to somebody, get on the phone, talk to your best friend, just as long as I was doing something to interrupt that pattern that was so very familiar with my body. It was the thought, the action, and then boom, I was in full swing all the time, and it never ended. So this is why your positive self-talk to shift your thinking into positive action is extremely important for you. So we're going to go through a little bit of the top irrational thoughts. I mentioned earlier that we're going to do this, and this is very, very important. These are the top irrational thoughts that I had. And for example, all or nothing thinking, okay? Here's one that's very popular with me. I did that all the time. All or nothing thinking is you see things in black and white categories. If a situation is falls short of perfect, you see it as a total failure. I can remember one time I was doing my best friend got married, and I was supposed to be the best man, and part of the best man's ritual is to do a speech. And so I remember going through halfway through the speech here and thinking, man, I've stumbled on a couple things here. This sucks. I'm no good. And I thought people were staring at me, laughing at me. And I had to do the STA method in my mind. I stopped. I thought about what I was doing. Says, no, Daryl, you're doing great. There's people listening to you intently. This is a very important part of your presentation here. People are listening to your stories. And I took control of the situation. And before I knew it, I was relaxed. And I delivered an amazing speech that people had a really good time listening to, and some really good jokes in there too. So yeah, so it's all or nothing thinking. You see things in black and white, and if a situation falls short of perfect, you see it as a total failure. So all or nothing thinking is one that was very, very, overgeneralization was a single negative event, such as a romantic rejection or a career reversal, has a never-ending pattern of defeat by using words such as always or never or every time we think about it. So for example, for me, it was every time I want to do something fun, it's raining outside. This sucks. Or every time I want to go out, to a movie, I don't have any money. Or whatever the case may be, I overgeneralized was my biggest downfall. Okay, so one of the things that I used to say to myself is I can't do anything right. Why does this always happen to me? What did I do to deserve this BS, right? So you see the pattern? So challenge the belief. And I used to say to myself, hold up, Dario, do you actually control the weather now? What do you mean every damn time you want to do something it rains? Or how many times did this happen that you decided to do something and it rained? And I'd say to myself, maybe once or twice, and this only happens a few times. It rains only a couple times, and it doesn't happen every single time you want to do something. And what do you mean you can't do things right? Like what? You can control the rain, you can make it stop? Like, seriously, you don't control the weather, you're not that gifted, Dario, and you just kind of chuckle it off, right? So so one of the things I wanted to share with you is one time I had to take the kids, a few years ago, rollerblading or having some fun at the park, and it was starting to rain. And that's exactly what I did to myself. Is I went to overgeneralization and say every time I got to take those kids out, something has to happen. It's got to rain or something goes wrong, right? And again, I had to talk myself out of that situation. So, and then we had a great time because you know what? I put myself in relaxation mode and I carried forward, and I ended up having a really, really fun time with the kids. Mental filter. You pick out a single negative event and you dwell on it exclusively so that your vision of reality becomes darkened. Like the drop of an ink that discolors a beacon of water. Example, people with this form of negative thinking often see the glass as being half empty rather than half full in any situation. In my day job, I sell real estate. And at one time I owned a real estate company and with some partners. And on some occasion I was asked to speak in front of a class, mostly rookies, some techniques about real estate, how to close some deals, how to maybe do some cold calling, how to get a customer to buy a home off you. So I was very blessed to being asked that by a few of the partners in my real estate company. And one particular summer day, I had a class of 15 students. In the middle of the class, this one student decides to yawn rudely and picks up a newspaper, puts his feet on the desk, and starts reading the sports page. I felt like crap. I mean, I thought I was boring. I thought I was uninteresting, and I was really offended. At the end of the class, the students came back to me and told me how they loved my teaching, and the class was amazing. They learned so many things, and they raved about complimenting me on what they had learned. A lot of them took notes, and a lot of them enjoyed it. Thinking about the guy who was reading the paper, yawning, it's all I could think about. It actually kept me up, and I lost some sleep over it. And I discounted my following, my thought pattern. I thought to myself quickly, I must be boring. I'm never going to do a speech again. No wonder the guy sighed and was reading the paper. I must have sucked. Why did I agree to do this and waste my time? If in my mind, that was a mental filter, and I only saw what I saw. Man, that guy looked like he was going to fall asleep, and I was really, really a bad speaker. So I had to challenge myself, even after the class ended. I had to stop it. And I said, look, Dario, you had 14 students that stayed after class, commended you on your work, and how they learned so much from you. You had one guy who had a bad day and you're focusing on him. Really? Maybe he had a bad day. Maybe he had personal issues. Who knows? Who cares? You did an amazing thing. You helped a lot of people in their real estate career move forward. The next day, you know, I wanted to find out a little bit more about what this guy's issue was. And I found out that this guy just moved here from India, and I didn't know this, and barely spoke any English. And he was so frustrated that he could not understand what I was talking about, that he was just, I don't know, looking at the newspaper. Not that he could read it, perhaps, I'm not sure. And he must have passed a really good exam because he was in the class, but he was focusing on something else. And he was really frustrated with himself. The issue was with him and not me. And so the mental filter was working, and I was blocking out the positives and only focusing on the negative. And that's exactly what I was doing. So these are the techniques that we're going to, you know, share with you, because what's happened here a lot of times is my mind was so full and so trained to be negative that it was automatic for me. It was absolutely automatic. And it just kind of went on in perpetual motion with one negative thought after another. So here's one that was very popular with me, is discounting the positive. You reject a positive experience by insisting that they don't count. If you do a good job, you may tell yourself that it wasn't good enough, or that anyone could have done just as well as you did. Discounting the positives takes the joy out of life and makes you feel inadequate and unrewarded. So, you know, one of the things that in life, we always do things that are good. We try to do things that are good. And when you say to yourself that didn't count or doesn't make a difference, or whatever the case may be, that's a negative thought. You do make a difference. And, you know, we jump to conclusions a lot, and we interpret things negatively, and there's no facts to support your conclusion. So we try to do things all the time to help the fellow person beside us or around us or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times we don't. And so because the mind is just jumping to conclusions, which brings me up to the next segue here, is actually jumping to conclusions. You interpret things negatively when there are no facts to support your conclusion. Mind reading, without checking it out, you arbitrarily conclude that someone is reacting negative to you. And fortune telling, you predict that things will turn out badly. Before a test, you may tell yourself, I'm really going to blow it. What if I flunk? If you're depressed, you may even tell yourself, I'll never get better. Or, for example, you're going on a hot date, and you might say to yourself, I hope this gal or guy likes me, because my teeth, I don't feel like they're, you know, like kind of yellow, or, I should have shaved, if you're a man or a woman, or whatever the case may be. So the thing is this, you want to be able to not jump to conclusions, because jumping to conclusions is a negative thought, and you're making things up like fortune telling, because things are not based on fact, they're in your mind. And so this is where we want you to control that. We magnify. That's another negative thought process, is we magnification. You exaggerate the importance of your problems and shortcomings, or you minimize the importance of your desirable qualities. This is also called the binocular trick. So a lot of times we magnify things in your life, and you make a big deal out of it when it's not. And that's something that I did so many times, and that was a confidence issue as well. I had a lot of problems with that in my life. Emotional reasoning. You assume that your negative emotions necessarily reflect the way things really are. I feel terrified about going on airplanes. It must be very dangerous to fly. Or I feel guilty. I must be a rotten person. I'm going to share with you a story that I don't tell too many people, obviously, because it's a kind of an embarrassing story. But it was about 14 years ago now. Yeah, 12 to 14 years ago. I was on a plane to go to Texas with my brother and a few other office executives from my real estate company. And we flew from Vancouver to Phoenix. And, you know, I wasn't really prepared to what was happening, and I wasn't really had full grasp of what was going on with my body at that time. And so when we flew to Vancouver to Phoenix, it was a 3-hour flight. I felt fine. I felt okay, a little bit jittery, but I was fine. Then we got off at Phoenix, sat in the airport for about an hour and a half, and the negative thoughts started. You know, they were like, what if the plane crashes? What if there's a terrorist attack? What if there's a bomb? What if I never see my kids anymore? What if this? What if that? What if I should have stayed home? And the negative thoughts came, and they came in bundles. And so what I did here basically was something that I decided to do at the time. I thought it was the correct way to do this. Is I took a little bit of a nap, but when I got up, I went to the back and one of the flight attendants was standing back there at her station. And I asked her, I said, you know, do you have any gravel or anything that can help me? And she looked at me, she goes, why do you need help? What's wrong with you? And I said, oh, no, nothing's wrong. I was trying to hide my issues, right? And I said that nothing's wrong. I just felt a little bit anxious. She goes, oh my God, are you having an anxiety attack? Are you okay, sir? Sir, are you okay? And she started really making this a big deal. And I guess I just took it the wrong way. And I just kind of turned around and sat back in my seat, sweating profusely at that time. And so we're flying to Texas. About 5 minutes later, the captain comes on and says, is there any medical personnel on board? We're having a medical issue in the back of the plane. So I started looking around. My brother started looking around. The executives we're flying with are all starting to look around. And the stewardess comes up to me and says, we're going to get you help, sir. Don't worry. And I'm like, what the? And my brother looked at me and he goes, what did you tell the what did you do? And I said, no, I didn't say anything. I said, if she had gravel to help me calm me down, and she's taking this to the next level, right? And so a minute later, I never forget her, big black lady that was from Florida. I never forgot her. She had these big hoop earrings. She turned around and she said, sir, I'm a nurse. I can help you. Are you sure you're okay? Are you in distress? I can help you. Now, obviously, when she did that, all eyes were on me because half the plane turned around. They were staring right at me. So I went into full panic mode, right? My sweat's pouring off my body. My back was drenched with sweat. I was the focal point of that airplane, okay? All because of my thoughts. This is how it started, right? And that's not the worst of it. We're now about 5 minutes into landing to Austin, Texas, and the captain comes on again and says, we do have medical personnel waiting and on the tarmac to help whoever's in need back there, some medical attention. And so when we land, please everybody stay in your seat because the medical professionals will come aboard. I'm like, what the hell is, like, my brother now is looking at me like, what did you tell these people? And I was in full blown panic, okay, full blown. And it was not coming to an end. And so of course the plane lands, we're on the tarmac, and two of Austin's finest come first, right? And behind them was the medical Austin, from the Austin hospital there. They come aboard with a gurney. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, this is my worst nightmare. It's come to life. And I thought negative thoughts were coming at me. Why did you go on this trip? Are you an idiot? Like, this is stupid. This is embarrassing. I had to walk the walk of shame across the whole plane. Well, all eyes were on me, right? And the medical personnel had his arm around me, and we're walking off the plane. And all eyes were on me, including the people that were, you know, holding me in high esteem from my office. So when I got down to the outside the plane there, of course, you know, they had the gurney out, they had air, oxygen, they were taking my temperature, they were doing all kinds of stuff, right? So I was in distress, obviously, at that time. And the reason why I share this story for you is that all started with a thought. Okay, that whole thing could have been avoided if I had calmed myself down. I had the right tools to do what I had to do to relax myself on that plane, because there's no reason why I should have acted. That whole thing should not have happened, okay, because I was fine. I was listening to music. I was just taking a little bit of a nap. I went to the bathroom, splashed some cold water in my face, and I panicked. I asked, you know, lady for that. Mind you, the stewardess or the flight attendant went overboard, but I guess she's trained to see that if people were going to lose it on an airplane. But yeah, that's my story, and it wasn't very good. And I vowed that I'd never do that again and control my thoughts. So the should statements, right? I think on the plane, I was telling myself a lot of times, I should have stayed home. I should not do this. I should, you know, what's wrong with me? And so in general, it leads to anger and frustration. I was angry, I was frustrated, and I was stubborn, and I was argumentative. Like, you know, I was not in a good place back then. Labeling. Labeling is an extreme form of all or nothing thinking. Instead of saying I made a mistake, you attach a negative label to yourself, and you say, like, for example, I'm a loser. You may also add other labels. When someone does something that rubs you the wrong way, you may tell yourself, he's such an SOB. So, yeah, so labeling is very much a negative thing that I did a lot of, right? And so you want to try to avoid that. Personalization and blame. Personalization and blame comes when you hold yourself personally responsible for an event that isn't entirely under your control. Some people do the opposite. They blame others. people or their circumstances for their problems, and they overlook ways that they may be contributing to the problem. So personalization and blame is something that I think is self-explanatory, but is very, very real, especially in the anxiety sufferer's life, right? So just getting back here, here's me and my beautiful girlfriend, Trina. She and I went to Vegas last year, and we have another trip booked this year. And Las Vegas is a little bit of a nice place for us to go relax, have some fun, and gamble a little bit. And, you know, if you told me about 10, 12, 13 years ago that I'd be going on a trip, you know, I'd probably say you're nuts. I'm never going to go on a plane again, never mind a trip, right? And I'll have you know that I had no anxiety episodes on this plane ride and any other ones since. We've gone to different places, but, you know, one of the things that I do now when I go on a plane is I relax myself, I keep myself busy, and when the thoughts do come in, and then they do still come in, I know what they are and I control them. Okay, so that's exactly what I did. Here we're at the, you know, the pawn shop, the show you see on TV. We're in that store, you know, where that's filmed. We had a lot of fun there. So the past hour, I think everybody here on this webinar would agree that it's been time well spent. And you have learned so far what I call the STA method, that's controlling your thoughts. And you're learning to stop, think, and act. And that's something that I think is the first step towards, you know, getting healthier, right? You're going to get the worksheets emailed to you, so you can you put all this information into action. We've got a whole complete worksheet program here that we've designed. Trina, my girlfriend, is helping with me a lot of the logistics of all this stuff here, putting it together. And you'll be thrilled to know that we've put together a really interesting little program here that's really going to help you overcome. So one thing I wanted to, you know, share with you is that it's gonna hurt. You're gonna have to go through a little bit of pain, and don't be scared of it, because in the end, the rewards outweigh the little bit of pain that you're gonna go through. It'll take a little bit of time. It will require some dedication on your part, and also require willpower. There's gonna be a little bit of willpower required, absolutely. You'll need to make healthy decisions. It's gonna require you to sacrifice some time every day to do this, okay? And I can tell you, I sacrificed a lot of time doing this. You'll need to push your body to its maximum, because there's going to be some pain and your heart's going to start racing. You're going to think you're going to lose it, but you're not. You're going to be fine. There'll be some temptation to quit, and I don't want you to do that. But I promise you, when you reach your goal, it's going to be worth it. It really, really will be. And so don't give up. And I know that we have so many things that we've talked about in the last 40, 45 minutes on this webinar, but I can tell you one thing, that the rewards, again, are just outweighs a little bit of negative that you're going to go through. So what I've done here is put together a little bit of a course here that I'm going to share with you. And it took over 12 months of studying, notes, and a lot of hired help. And the Stop Anxiety 101 Fundamental course includes 11 easy to follow lessons with worksheets to help you practice these techniques. These lessons are designed with you, the sufferer, in mind. Remember, I'm not just somebody who sits in, you know, in a chair of authority like a doctor, a psychologist, a counselor. I'm somebody who's lived this, who's gone through hell and back, and have gone where you don't want to go, or a lot of people have not gone. And these are short and easy to follow programs, which really will help you overcome. So, some of the stuff that I've done is that we've also done a little bit of a book here that we put together. In the last year, I took some time out to write, and I wanted to share some things that my book will do for you. And some of the things that it talks about is diet and exercise. I can't tell you how important that is. I've been able to lose 50, 60 pounds from my program because I really, really watched what my diet was. I mean, I can remember when I was in full swing anxiety, my diet consisted of a donut and a Diet Coke in the morning. And no wonder I was in full blown panic attack, you know, 20 hours of the day, you know. So you're going to learn how to do some problem solving. And this is very important for you, because an anxiety sufferer really doesn't know how to solve any problems, because he's thinking about anxiety or his next one. And you're going to learn how to do, how to handle your stress and how to manage it. You know, in my career being a realtor, there is a lot of stress involved, and I'm sometimes dealing 10 or 12 clients at a time. and we're going to learn how to manage it. Preventing and overcoming panic and anxiety attacks is something I'm going to share with you. And we're going to also rethink your worries and how to overcome general anxiety disorder. So there's a couple things that we've put a lot of effort and time and putting together so you can be anxiety free and live a normal life. And that's what we want you to do. Normally in this course, we've sold in the past, we sold quite a few of them, but $197. Okay, but because the webinar is on today, we've got quite a few people on, and we're broadcasting. We've put together a little bit something special for the listeners here today that we're going to hold up for a little while, and we'd really like you to take action on it if you're thinking of getting rid of your anxiety and living an anxiety-free life. So we've also hired a hypnotherapist. It's a fellow that we know who put together a 60-minute relaxation audio. Now, this audio was created by, again, a certified hypnotherapist that sets the atmosphere for your brain and body to relax. In order to release yourself of the anxiety and fear and negative thoughts, your brain has to be in relaxation mode. And what I found is by doing this a couple times a day, my mind was relaxed and it was healing as I was sleeping. It's so important to be able to relax and get a good night's sleep. And sometimes I still do in the middle of the day, pop home for 10 or 12 minutes, have something to eat, and then I'll just lie down on my couch and I will do this audio series. It's amazing what it does. It just makes me feel like I've had a 6 or 7 hour sleep and makes me just absolutely refreshed when I kind of get out of it. It's really incredible. And this audio thing, this in itself sells for $197 as well. So we also include you to a Facebook group to ask questions and to get support. We all need help from a friend, someone who understands and can encourage us on this journey to living a better life. You know, if I look back at my time when I had anxiety, I must have spent close to $5,000 to $7,000 in that period of time where I was looking and grabbing at straws, looking for help. And, you know, it's with parents, friends, family, people helping me. They didn't know what it was, working part-time. I really had to come up with some money to help me, but nothing was really helping me. So basically, support, Facebook group support, people who are sufferers, people who you can ask questions to. And myself, I'm going to be on there all the time to help you along the way as well. And that to me was priceless because I was alone. And that's where fear can do most damage and keep you in a dark place, is when you're alone and depressed and scared. So the total value of this whole course we put together is a value of $394. And believe you me, that's an excellent deal, because quite honestly, there is a lot of information there with the worksheets, the book, the relaxation tape, everything. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a fantastic price of $97. Just because you've listened to the webinar, we're broadcasting here, and we have quite a few people on. And I tell you one thing, if I was back in 1993, 94, and something like this came across my way, you know, I paid $150 to $180 just to sit down with a guy who put me in a chair and talked about my childhood, right? So $97 for a course back then would have been a steal, and it still is today. So I encourage you to order that at $97, and we would be glad to have you, of course, on our Facebook group, and we can share some ideas and some things that I can help you with overcome. So the bonus package we do have for you as well today, if you order today, we're going to offer you as well as 10 Calm Mind videos. And if you've tried the meditation before, this is a little bit different, and it's a step-by-step process. And we're going to give you those for absolutely free. It's a $297 value. This hypnotherapist fellow isn't cheap, right? So we put together a really nice little package for you to give away as well. So we'll keep this available open for the next 48 hours. We'd love to see some orders come in and help yourself right away. So thank you very much for listening to Anxiety 101. Again, my name was Dario Castiglia. It's been absolutely a privilege to help. And if I can help one person out there, I've always said, I'd be absolutely thrilled. Thank you again, and God bless. We'll talk to you next time.